Hi guys, welcome back to the channel in what is our last in the series of the deep dive videos. So thanks to everybody that's been watching the deep dive videos club by club as we move through the summer. But today, last but by no means least, it is the boys from Molineux. It's Wolves' turn to get the FPL Family deep dive treatment. Now, changes afoot, obviously, at the end of last season. Nuno Espirito Santo left Wolves after having a pretty tricky looking season, a bit unlucky with injuries, but nevertheless probably kind of underperformed a little bit versus where the board and the fans would have wanted him to be. So he's now hot-footed it down to London and now is manager of Spurs, in case you missed that news. But the incoming manager, Benfica's, or formerly from Benfica, Bruno Laga. Now, I don't know whether I'm saying that correctly. You can get in the comments and tell me whether it's Large or Laga. I don't know. But this guy is coming to the Premier League with a pedigree for attacking players. So if you're looking at Wolves' defence, which we will look at in a second or two, there are some nice options in there at 4.5. And I think Wolves can be, well, it has been in the past, a defence that we've relied on in FPL. But I don't know whether this new guy is going to come with a defensive-minded mentality into the Premier League. I think he's going to take more of an attacking mindset. And we've seen already that kind of play out in some of the transfers that he's made this summer, particularly a loanee from Barcelona that we're going to talk about a bit later on. But let's look first at Wolves' fixtures for the upcoming season. Now, very easy to see that the first few fixtures, Leicester, Spurs and Manchester United there, the first three fixtures, very difficult for Wolves actually. So from my perspective, I think they're going to be a wait and see in FPL. I don't think I'm going to be going into game week 1 with any Wolves players. Certainly none of the let's say the more expensive FPL assets. I might look at one or two of their other players to fill in some spots where I might need some budget enablers. More on that a bit later on. But what I wanted to do with this particular piece here is just to say that there is a massive fixture swing for Wolves in game week 4. So they are the perfect team to have a look at. See how the new manager's mentality beds in. Have a look at the likes of Jimenez, who, as you can see on the screen there, has come back in pre-season from that horrific head injury that he had last season. And goodness me, we're so pleased to see him back. And the Wolves fans will be really pleased to see him back. Maybe Adama Traore will be pleased to see him back. The amount of times those two combined for goals in the Premier League in seasons past. But Wolves from game week 4, if you go onto the members area at Fantasy Football Scout and then sort from game week 4 to 8 and then sort by difficulty, with those first three fixtures out of the way, the Wolves fixtures look pretty good. It's Watford, Brentford, Southampton, Newcastle, Aston Villa. So for me, you've got the first 3 weeks there with the opportunity to look at how things settle down at Molineux. Let's see what sort of Wolves we're going to get. Did we see the true Wolves last season with no Otto and no Jimenez, and with Jota going to Liverpool? They're missing a lot of their big players. So will we see the likes of Neto and Adama Traore and Jimenez himself coming back to the fore quickly and hitting the ground running this season and the upcoming season? Well, we've got the opportunity to wait and see in that first 3 game weeks, knowing that in game week 4, and those of you that are playing an early wild card, I know that's a strategy that a lot of you FPL managers out there have employed over the last few seasons. If you're looking at your early wild card in maybe game weeks 4 to 5 to 6, something like that, or even earlier, then Wolves should be on your wildcard radar, because from game week 4, they look pretty good. And Jimenez back in the game after quite a long period of time out at 7.5 puts himself right in the middle of a very, very competitive bracket with the likes of Watkins and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And even Ivan Toney, if you go down a little bit to 6.5. If you look at Antonio, there's a lot of forwards in that bracket that will require our attention in FPL. And Jimenez, I think, is one of them. He's already got off the mark, I think, a couple of times in pre-season for Wolves at time of recording. So he looks to be hitting the ground running, Raul Jimenez, which is great if you're a Wolves fan. Let's go on and talk about their defence then. So again, I mentioned at the top of the video, not expecting the new manager to come in with much of a defensive mindset. And as I said before, you know, a lot of 4.5s in there. Connor Cody, at time of recording, currently in, I think, 7.9% of FPL teams. So as you can see here, that's based on a lot of very good defending on the right-hand side, which is 2 seasons ago. So what the graphic is showing you here from the data in the Fantasy Football Scout members area is the way that Wolves defended 2 seasons ago versus, which is on the right, versus how they defended last season. And you can see a lot of red on the left-hand side. So a real drop-off from 2 years ago to last year. And is that because Otto was missing and a few other key players were missing? Let's see whether they can pick up the form that they showed defensively a couple of seasons ago and sort of turn it around from last season. But as you can see, just lots more, almost 10% more goal attempts conceded over the course of the season. The only statistic which is better there is goal attempts conceded from open play. So they're probably defending those a bit better. But as you can see, goal attempts conceded in general a lot more in last season. 88 gone up from 79. So listen, there's not many stats that I can talk you through here that demonstrate that they were better defensively than they were 2 seasons ago. And I'm not convinced that the new manager coming in is going to change that. So if you're looking at a Wolves defender for your FPL team, and there are some decent ones in there. I mean, Connor Cody is solid as you like, right? I don't think he's going to carry much goal threat for you, although he did bag a couple last season, didn't he? So early on in last season. So maybe he's worthy of consideration. You know you're going to get some minutes from him, of course. The one to look out for, I think, is maybe Ait-Nouri in that left-back position. He's had license to get forward more as a left winger, actually, in pre-season. So it'll be interesting to see how Bernd Lager employs him coming into the new season. Let's see whether Ait-Nouri is a little bit of a 4.5 out-of-position prospect come game week 4. He could be one to have on your radar. But outside of that, Wolves not really showing me enough defensively last season to suggest that they can up it again coming back into this season. The return of some of their bigger players, if Otto can make a return, Johnny can get back, then obviously that might make a difference. But for me, they are definitely a wait and see with those first 3 fixtures looking very difficult. And then if you tune into their midfield, so we've talked a little bit before about Jimenez and him coming back, which is great. And we've talked a bit about the defence being a wait and see. And then if you look at the midfield, it's a bit of a minefield there as well. I like the look of Neto, although currently flagged in FPL. I think he's coming into the season with a little bit of an injury. So will that affect his pre-season? Will that affect the ability for him to hit the ground running coming into the new season? I suspect it might. And there's also other clubs that are sniffing around him as well. He's being linked with Liverpool and he's being linked with Spurs as well. He's going back to his old manager, potentially, Nuno Espirito Santo, back at Spurs, or going back to his old teammate Jota at Liverpool. However, if he stays at Wolves, I think he's a reasonable asset. 6.5, a lot of goals, plenty of assists last season, and was the creator-in-chief for Wolves last season. Probably, arguably, you can get in the comments if you disagree with this, but arguably their most dangerous player in FPL last season. So at 6.5 million, I think he's reasonable value depending on what his pre-season looks like, how he recovers from that injury, and how he gets going in those first 3 game weeks. He could be one that is on the early wildcarders watch list, so keep an eye on Pedro Neto. Elsewhere, the rest of the midfield is quite difficult. Before I talk about Traore and the new signing, the young loanee from Barcelona, Trincao, just spare a thought for Morgan Gibbs-White. So Morgan Gibbs-White, a 4.5 midfielder coming back into the Wolves setup from Swansea. He was on loan at Swansea last season and he played slightly off of the number 9. He played a far more advanced role than we're used to seeing Gibbs-White play. And actually at 4.5, if he's an out of position kind of number 10 sort of role playing slightly off of Jimenez, that could be a very interesting prospect for your 5th midfielder position. If you're looking for a player that's going to carry a little bit of goal threat, then maybe he's the one. And I think he has been employed there a couple of times during the pre-season. So keep an eye on 4.5 Gibbs-White. Again, probably not one to go into unless you need to for budget reasons. Probably not to go into game weeks 1 to 3. But again, absolutely one that could be on the radar. Now, the player that I'm kind of interested to see whether he comes back to the fore is Traore. I love watching Traore, such a powerhouse down that wing. But it remains to be seen whether he gets the nod over Trincao. You've got to think that the manager's brought in the loanee Trincao from Barcelona for a reason. And I think both of those players are going to probably duke it out for that same position. We know what sort of relationship Traore and Jimenez have got and how many goals they combined for. Not last season, obviously, with the Jimenez injury so much, but the year before that, they were deadly, those two. And actually, without Jimenez last season, Traore had a bit of a difficult season. He had a little bit of an upturn in form towards the end of the year, but actually not a good season based on the stats he posted previous season, and not as good as the Wolves fans were expecting. So I don't know. I've got to expect Trincao to start the season. You've got to think that Lager's bought this kid in. He's going to be his man. I don't see them making a whole wave of signings over the course of the season, the course of the pre-season. So this is a player that the manager has brought in. He's put his name to it, so you've got to think he's going to give him a bit of game time. But again, guys, I go back to the original thinking, which is difficult to pick from these three. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go for Neto based on, I think, potential to have a good season and the stats that he showed last year. But if he's carrying that bit of an injury and he maybe has a difficult pre-season, then I'm not going to pick him in game week 1. Delighted to see Jimenez back, of course, but at 7.5, there's a lot of other value and a lot of players that are not coming back from big injuries, like Dominic Calvert-Lewins, like the Antonios, like Watkins, who I think more likely you're going to see those guys in FPL teams than you are Jimenez to start with. But as I said before, guys, keep an eye on that big fixture swing. That is the key with Wolves. 1 to 3, scout them, watch their matches on the TV. And then when we get into game week 4, that's when the fixture swing really goes. So if Trincao or Traore is getting the nod on that side, maybe Neto's recovered from that injury coming back to the fore, maybe Jimenez starts like a house on fire, or maybe Ait-Nouri is playing as an advanced out of position left winger as a 4.5 defender, he could be absolute gold. But guys, it's all ifs, buts and maybes until we see those first 3 fixtures. Hold fire, get ready to act on that early wildcard in game week 4 if that is your strategy. There we go, guys. What have I missed from a Wolves perspective? Get in the comments below. Let me know. What have I missed from the players here? What do you think of the new goalkeeper coming in? What do you think the new manager's philosophy is going to be? Are they going to be ultra defensive, or are they going to attack with a bit more flair like we would expect from a Benfica? My bet, if I was a betting man, was that it will be the latter. Thanks, guys, for watching the deep dive series over the course of the summer. It's been great putting these videos together. Hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more content coming between now and the big kickoff. Leave us a like before you go, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.